What's going on, guys? Welcome back to a classic episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is co-captain, the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And this episode's kind of kicking it back old school, where our feature discussion is going to be Disney's Encanto. But for the first time in a while, we're just going to talk about some trailers. We haven't really done this one in a while, so what's there to talk about?
Well, in between all of the anime and everything else, well, first off, there are so many smaller animated films coming out in December, or they are getting a Oscar qualifying run. And one of them is a film that showed up at the Annecy Film Festival this year for the Contretemps section. Bob Spit, We Do Not Like People. It's a stop motion film, and it's inspired by the works of the acclaimed Brazilian cartoonist Angeli. And it's a stop motion film with a meta commentary. The titular Bob lives in a post-apocalyptic desert, which is in fact the inside of Angeli's mind. The artist is determined to kill his character off, but Bob decides to fight back and confront his creator. It's being distributed by Outsider Pictures, and if you're in LA, you'll probably see it playing in a theater, hopefully. And then otherwise, it'll probably do like virtual theaters and an on-demand release, because I haven't seen anything about a physical release for this one. They distributed last year's Kill It and Leave This Town, which did not really do well, even though I know a lot of people liked it. I loved the visual look for Bob Spit. The stop motion looks incredible. And this like old punk goblin character taking out these pop monster things is a very clever analogy for, or allegory for, when punk died and pop became the big thing. What did you think about the trailer?
Oh man, I love the look of this. I love the punk rock aesthetic of like the stop motion world. I'm just a big fan of movies and shows that are like about art and about the creation of art. It kind of reminds me a little bit of other movies like Charlie Kaufman's Adaptation, or just like anytime like animation kind of pokes fun at the process. You know, like the first episode of Tiny Toons, when we see Buster and Babs kind of create the world around them.
Right.
That's like, it's just a fun premise that to me never gets old.
Right. And it's just cool to see another stop motion film, just whatever release it gets. We're getting 2 stop motion films next year with Del Toro's Pinocchio and Wendell and Wild.
And I know someone who's working on them. Hopefully we can get them on an episode when they're allowed to talk about them more.
That would be great, because stop motion films need all the support in the world. And speaking of Netflix, we had 4 interesting trailers that popped up. I know December decided to flood all the animation. So today we actually got our first look at the Netflix original anime feature Bubble, which is coming from Wit Studios. And man, this was just a surprise. This came out of nowhere, because there were no previous like conversations or announcements about it. It will be coming out next year on April 2022, and it has a bunch of people who worked on like Attack on Titan and like a really big like all-star cast of production people behind the film. And it just looks gorgeous. Wit Studios does some incredible work. And the whole premise of like these bubbles and just how they wrecked the world around them is very like, I'm curious about what the secret, what the mystery is, and this supposed survival kind of aspect to it. And man, it just looks so good.
Oh yeah, I'm watching this trailer was just it was an experience. I didn't even know I needed a movie like this. I'm just very happy for Studio Wit in general, and like some of their more recent output has been like really impressive. We've said it before on our fall anime podcast, but I cannot stress enough, you got to check out Ranking of Kings. It is so good, and this movie looks so good too.
Yeah, it does. And they got Sawano back to compose the music. So yeah, Hiroyuki Sawano, the guy who does like Kill la Kill and Promare and Attack on Titans music. A lot of good stuff coming with this one movie. Then we also got a trailer for the film for Hilda and the Mountain King, the next stop on our journey through the world of Hilda. And I was shocked to see that we were getting a film this soon because it took like 2 years to get the second season for this really good show. And now we just had to wait a year to get the movie. And I'm curious to see how, I guess cinematic's not the word, but how movie feel the movie will be. Because you can't just make like, oh, just a slightly bigger budgeted episode of the show, even though the show looks freaking gorgeous as usual. But I want to see how it takes advantage of a film format, or if it's just going to be like a TV special.
According to Wikipedia, the runtime for the movie is just going to be like 80 minutes. I can only guess what the movie is going to be. Is the story is probably just going to be like a very specific plot involving Hilda and the trolls and all of that. But as long as it's still the same creative team, which I'm sure it is, it's going to be good no matter what. Hilda is one of the best shows on Netflix that not a lot of people have checked out, but it has some of the most like creative world building, fun characters, everyone from like the humans to the like the elves and all of their bureaucratic tendencies is always kind of amusing.
Right. Now we'll just have to see. And, hopefully all the people working on this show are treated well. Because, hashtag New Deal for animation. We have to make sure everyone gets the pay they deserve because they're putting out some great stuff. So, one of the few anime trailers that came out recently is for a comedy anime called Aharen is Indecipherable, which is a show coming out in the spring season, if I remember correctly. Though it could be the winter season, which is so close. I can't believe it.
April 2022. So this is the spring.
It looks cute. I'm glad that they're in the same class and the same age. She's just short. Granted, I think the design is pushing it a little because it's like you can only go so far with that. Like, oh, they're the same age. And it's like, she looks like a toddler. Or just like a little kid in like first or second grade and what have you. But it looked adorable. It looked sweet. And we'll just have to see how it handles its premise and its jokes and all of that jazz.
Yeah, I know. It looks cute. The designs do worry me a little bit, but hopefully the romance angle is believable. These two characters have, solid chemistry, and the gags are funny.
Yeah, that's all we can hope for. The other two Netflix trailers, we had the Stand By Me Doraemon 2, which is finally getting brought over from last year to now, and is one of the first times and one of the few things we are like the US is getting in terms of Doraemon or Doraemon, which is interesting because it's such a big franchise in Japan, but it has never crossed over into the US. There were a few attempts and it just never quite worked out. And now here we are, and we're going to get both of the CGI animated films, the Stand By Me, Doraemon 1 and Stand By Me, Doraemon 2. Netflix is just not very clear about that because you wouldn't bring over the sequel if you aren't going to bring over the first film also.
Right.
This is why I talked about how Netflix is just dumping a ton of smaller animated features in our direction in December. And I can't say it's because they're wanting to compete against Sing 2. It's just content for the sake of content.
It kind of feels like Netflix is filling out a quota. Like, oh no, we still need to release like X amount of films per year. Oh shoot, it's already December. Dump everything we got. Just put it out there.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I'm sure a lot of these movies and shows are really good, but if they're not going to advertise them, like even their press release for like everything coming to Netflix does not cover everything that's coming to Netflix. They hide half of these things, which is really awkward. And it's just like these things are more important than these things. And that shouldn't be the case if you're making them Netflix exclusives, at least for here in the States. But we'll have to see. I'm curious to see my reaction to the Doraemon films.
Same. These movies will be like kind of my official first exposure to the franchise because like you mentioned before, Doraemon has next to zero name recognition in the States, but that's because the franchise is long and very confusing. There are 3 different TV series and each with like a million episodes, and there are well over 40 different movies produced between 1979 and present day.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like we're never going to do an episode covering all of those movies because half of them are like remakes of older films, and then there are the 2 CGI films which don't really follow whatever continuity the franchise has. So it's like the Fate franchise. It's dense and winding.
Very convoluted.
Yeah, of just where to start. And then we got a trailer for SEAL Team, which they are also burying and not giving very much any advertising outside of this one trailer, which is a CGI film that I've been like, it's been on my radar, but it wasn't like there was no real trailers or footage to look at or that I can remember. It was just, oh, here's some steals and here's a voice cast that includes like Patrick Warburton, J.K. Simmons, Kristen Shaw, and like a lot of good character actors and voice actors involved. And for such a goofy pun name for a film and a very ridiculous premise, they really went hard on putting as much effort and creativity into this project than you would think that they would.
Oh yeah.
It's CGI, but it's animated like it's stop motion. The characters are wildly expressive. The animation is snappy. The action is bombastic. And it's very clever with its humor. It has a very laid back sense of humor, or very British or pseudo Adventure Time, I guess, or maybe a little bit of Futurama and Simpsons sprinkled in. And it just looks like a fun time. It's coming out at the very last day of December, so December 31st. Yeah, sorry if this is like the first time you've heard about this, and it's a shame that they're burying the movie like that. It's not even on the main Netflix YouTube channel. It's on their Netflix Futures channel. That's the problem. They have so many YouTube channels that they will relegate certain announcements to, and you have to keep up with that. It's really tiring. But the film looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah, this trailer was a lot funnier than I was expecting. I thought this was just going to be like one of those kind of like low budget
direct to video films that get dumped onto Netflix because they were very cheap.
They'll end up on like Lionsgate for like $2 on Google or all the various streaming platforms. This looks fun. I love like the voice casts they have. I'm all about silly puns like SEAL Team. So this basically is my sense of humor.
Right, same here. And well, I would like to say that's it for all the trailers, but some I guess something came up. I mean, I guess we gotta talk about it because we just got our first look for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Not a big deal.
Oh yeah, no, definitely not a big deal at all.
Oh my goodness, this looks amazing.
Can we talk for a second about the fact that this is called Part 1? Now, I know in the past we've seen like book adaptations split in half,
Yeah, like we've seen it, and
this actually started with, at least to like in my memory, it started with Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, then the Hunger Games Mockingjay,
yeah,
and then the Hobbit like itself was just one book split into three movies, and then you got it chapter 1 and 2. Dune is also part 1 of 2, but this is the first time that I've seen, for all intents and purposes, original animated film be labeled part 1. These Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse films aren't necessarily direct comic book adaptations. They're just like kind of general adaptations of Miles Morales' story from the comics. So this is just, we're kind of in uncharted territory in that regard.
right, we are, and man, it just looks good. This iconic now visual style that Sony pretty much let the team working on this create is so fun and just distinct. Like you can tell what team and what people are working on this film. It's like the Pixar and Disney style. I mean, like I want Sony to keep experimenting with different visual styles like they did with the Mitchells versus the Machines. But if they started doing other films and shows with this art direction and animation style, so be it. I love the little Easter egg of the Mitchells versus the Machines.
That was a cool little reference. I hope like they keep doing things like that, kind of like how what Pixar started, dropping little Easter eggs of the next film in each of their catalog.
Yeah, and it took me a few times to watch the trailer and then a few tweets pointing it out. They aged up the characters a little, at least for Miles and Gwen. It looks great. I love that they aged up the characters, that some time has passed. This isn't just a direct follow up because you can let a little time pass. You don't have to just make it happen right after one, like the first film. I think that's what really doomed the Mortal Kombat films for the 90s. Oh, now we're stuff is about to go down, and then you watch the second film and it's like, oh my gosh.
And half the people are recast anyway, so doing like that whole idea was just moot.
Yeah, or like the Super Mario live action movie did that as well, where it's like they teased a sequel and it's like, that you don't know that's going to happen, right? But we knew this was going to happen after Spider-Verse took home all the awards.
Oh, hell yeah. One thing I really love about this trailer is because this is really just like a first look and the movie is still a little bit less than a year away, there's no guarantee that any of this footage is going to make it into the actual film. But that being said, it still looks fucking amazing. Once you see Spider-Man 2099 charging in against Miles, and like the backgrounds all look wild and amazing, colors are just popping off the screen. Super excited for this.
Yeah, and this is the first time that they actually made a 2-part animated film. That really hasn't happened. And that's very interesting to see that they took like the Lord of the Rings approach and what have you, of just making one big movie. And it's great that they put up front that it's part one, because there seems to be this thing with movie sequels where they don't really want to say it's a sequel. They use something like if this was like anyone else, they would have just done Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And then you'd find out, oh my gosh, it's only part one, which pissed off a lot of people about Dune. I'm not hating on Dune, but they really should have made it clear that this was going to be part one. And then half the people wouldn't be leaving the theater being like, well, what the heck happened there? That wasn't an ending. The team making this new movie, like, we still got a screenplay by Lord and Miller, and then we have David Callahan. And then the directors are different this time. We have Justin K. Thompson, Joaquim dos Santos, who worked on a ton of just really good stuff. And then we also have the One Night in Miami and co-director of Soul director, Kim Powers.
Hell yeah.
Dos Santos worked on stuff from like Justice League, Avatar, G.I. Joe.
Basically a lot of our childhood.
Just a lot of action. So, and he's picked up a reputation of knowing how to set up a ton of great action sequences. So that's a good sign of like how the action will be. And the action was already great in the first film. So
I'm excited to see how this one tops the original.
Yeah. Though we just have to remember the original movie, the first Spider-Verse, was like a lightning in a bottle situation. I think there's going to be this air of unfairness about being like, well, it's not as good or as shocking as the first one. And it's like, well, yeah, nothing can be the first movie again. You can't just be like, hope for the best and get lightning in a bottle again. So you have to make sure you have something to like, what can we do next? What can we push next? What's our next challenge? But we'll have to see. And for now, those are all the trailers.
Can we take a moment to talk about the short called Far From the Tree? This was written and directed by Natalie Norgat, and the little synopsis: parenting is tough, especially when the stakes are high. On an idyllic beach in the Pacific Northwest, curiosity gets the better of a young raccoon whose frustrated parent attempts to keep them both safe. I thought this short was adorable. It's great to see 2D animation on the big screen again. As far as like the theme of this short, it ties perfectly into Encanto, dealing with family and
the stress and trauma that comes from like previous actions brought upon the last generation of family members.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of that discussion at for this podcast, so just a heads up. And was it actually 2D? Because I think it was actually stylized CGI. It just does a good job at mimicking the 2D aesthetic. We will have to see once there's a little more information about it.
All I know is that just stylistically, like between this and I think Burrow was the name of the short attached Soul last year. Yeah. I love Disney and Pixar kind of allowing their shorts to be more experimental, taking risks with like different styles. And just like in general, when you're making a short film, that's really the only time that we get to see kind of, silent films in animation.
Yeah, we get to see them tell a story through visuals and such. And it was very touching. And also, while there are some moments that were a little dark, the kids in my audience, when I saw Encanto, responded very positively to it. So that's a good sign right there. And it's a very touching story. And just the way they get it all through visuals alone is so impressive. I wish Disney and Pixar would let the teams that make these movies and shorts do these for feature films, but I understand it's going to cost a lot. But you are also Disney and Pixar.
You can afford to fork over like a little extra dough for this style.
because the visual styles for something like Burrow and Far from the Tree look amazing, and they would look amazing as movies. And the fact that they're being relegated to shorts, which understandable, it costs less, the runtime is smaller, and there's more experimentation and freedom. But animated films, really good ones, don't always cost $100 million. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this with Encanto, but Disney's biggest enemy is Disney itself. And I've talked about this before, where they are their own biggest hurdle because they have a certain like legacy and image that they have to uphold that they don't really need to, because they already own like half the world. Everyone's going to see their stuff. They're going to see the Marvel movies and the Star Wars movies and their Disney live action films and whatnot. They can afford to expand their image a little, especially when we just talked about this with Sony having the Mitchells versus the Machines and Spider-Verse. Everyone else is upping their game against you. You need to do what you need to do to up your game to go against everyone else, because if things are going as they are right now, I think the Mitchells are going to take home the award for best animated feature.
It is looking more likely each passing day that is the case.
And I love like films like Encanto and Raya and the Last Dragon, but there's a lot of competition this year. You can't expect to be the only one. We knew that Soul was going to win last year, even though I would have still preferred Wolfwalkers, but I love both movies, so it doesn't really matter. We saw what happened in 2018. Disney had a weaker year and Spider-Verse swung in and took the award.
Yep.
And then I know they got it back with Toy Story 4 because it was the supposed last movie until, Lightyear was a thing. So, and the Academy is allergic to letting a foreign animated feature win anything since Spirited Away. But yeah, in general, Far from the Tree was a great short. I can't wait for it to pop up on Disney Plus. And it was like the perfect short to put in front of Encanto.
Oh yeah.
So it's just amazing. 60 animated features, and Disney's going to be like 100 years old very soon in the next few years.
We are 2 years away from Disney's 100th anniversary.
Just the evolution, the different forms that Disney animation has taken, from its shorts to its feature films to those anthology films made during the big animation strike back in the day, to Walt's death, to its real crash and burn and almost dying moment in the 80s, and then its revival in the 90s, and then its crash and burn against Pixar and DreamWorks in the 2000s, only to rise up again and have a few stumbles, but still do better than the early 2000s era and the 1970s and 80s version of their animation.
It is incredible though that Disney, like throughout all their years, have really only had two dry spells.
Yeah, and they were able to get out of it because they were like, hey, we don't need to be anyone else. And which is funny because that's like the moral for every Disney movie. That's what happened to like Cartoon Network when they wanted to do a bunch of live action stuff. They wanted to go against Nickelodeon and Disney, and they failed. The channel almost died. What saved them? Cartoons. And they were like, by golly, this new strategy of making cartoons for Cartoon Network is actually working. We'll have to talk about that sometime. And then like with WB back in the 90s wanting to be like Disney, a lot of their films failed. They have small fan bases like The Swan Princess and Quest for Camelot. And then it was just all too late before Cats Don't Dance didn't do well and The Iron Giant bombed. It's just interesting to see the influence that Disney had on the animation scene and what everyone else was doing to compete against Disney, like from back then to now. But let's actually get to Encanto finally. Sorry for the ramblings. It's really interesting and important to look at the history of the animation studio itself and the people that worked on it, that made it, that almost killed it, and all of it, the history, the politics. It's all in the art and the history of it all.
Disney history could be its own course taught in school. Getting back to Encanto itself, this film was directed by Byron Howard and Jared Bush, and co-directed, this is important, by Charisse Castro-Smith, and this is her feature film debut, with a screenplay written by Jared Bush, Charisse Castro-Smith, from a story by Bush, Castro-Smith, Howard, Jason Hand, Nancy Cruz, and Lin Manuel-Miranda. So he wasn't just doing the music. He actually had a little bit of a hand in the story.
Now, who knows how much he did? Who knows?
But the story itself centers around the Madrigals, an extraordinary family who live hidden in the mountains of Colombia in a charmed place called the Encanto. The magic of the Encanto has blessed every child in the family with a unique gift. Well, except for Mirabelle. However, she soon may be the Madrigal's last hope when she discovers that the magic surrounding the Encanto is now in danger. So, Cameron, I'm going to ask you first, when did you first find out about this film? Like, how long have you known, that this was like in production? I remember hearing rumblings about Lin Manuel-Miranda's second Disney film as far back as like 2016.
Yeah, that was around the first time that he mentioned that he was working on another Disney film, and this was also on top of his In the Heights, Vivo, and Tick Tick Boom going on. And then the news around it kind of dropped. But then we got the announcement during the big Disney Plus investor thing last year, and we got our first teaser, and then it went quiet again. And then we got the official teaser, and then the official trailer, and then it had a behind the scenes thing at the Animation is Film Festival, which I really wish they would upload that just to hear what the people there were talking about and showing off, because those are one of the most fun things you can do at Animation is Film, is to go to a behind the scenes thing. That's how I saw the first 14 minutes of Klaus. Yeah, then it was just released. And so in general, what did you think before we really dive into Encanto?
I love this movie. Honestly, start to finish, I was completely sucked into this world. I adored all the characters. The music, which we'll dive a little bit into later, is just so catchy. I've had like all of these songs stuck in my head for, the past week, and they will just never leave. The whole concept of the Encanto and all of the family having these abilities it's wonderful.
Yeah, this is my favorite Disney film in a while. I think the last time I felt this great and good about a Disney animated feature was probably 2016 with Zootopia and Moana. Not that I hate Frozen 2 and Ralph Breaks the Internet, but they weren't as good as those endeavors or the endeavors of this year. And I love Raya, but if I had to pick between the two as the best film from Disney and not counting Pixar with Luca, I think Encanto is the one that is the superior film, even if I like both. And I'll talk a little bit about what I love about it like in just a second.
I would agree with you. As much as I love Raya, I think perhaps, and this is just my bias, but because Encanto was a musical, it kind of like took that edge. And because this movie is part of Lin Manuel-Miranda's I'm Awesome tour in 2021, with him having 4 different projects released all in this year.
Right. No, he's been a very busy bee, to put it lightly. And I think let's start with the pros. For a Disney film, this is one of their more smaller scale stories and experiences. I kind of called it, but a lot of the movie, like a mass majority of it, takes place within the house.
Which I think is so cool. I've heard people kind of like point out the kind of Doctor Who reference that the casita is bigger on the inside with all the different rooms.
Right. And I think that's great. Not every film needs to be this big, bombastic epic. And I know a lot of people are like, I miss when Disney made stuff like Treasure Planet and Atlantis, The Lost Empire, even though I'm going to call out that hypocrisy when none of you saw those two movies. That's why they didn't do well. You know what film did do well during that time period? Lilo and Stitch, the small scale story driven experience between those two. I think that's a good thing that Disney knows that they can make a smaller story. It's a good thing for Pixar to do that, and it's a good thing for Disney to do that as well. Like, it doesn't take place all within the house, and like there are some moments within the village that they are in and some places in the wildlife, but 90% of the film does take place within the house. And I think that's great because they give the house a lot of personality. It's a magic house. You have to have fun with that. You have to take advantage of that. The powers or the miracles are really interesting when you start connecting the dots about the themes of legacy, family, and the toxicity and pressure brought upon to the younger generation by the older generation. It's a very complex story about the dynamic between family members and just the actions and consequences brought upon them by individual members. Like there's, of course, Louisa, who is super strong. Yes, it is funny to see her lift up a bridge with no pressure or carry like 20 donkeys, but it also symbolizes the pressure of like holding up the entire family legacy and just how stressed out she is with her talk, speak, rap song. I mean, if you needed to know this was a Lin Manuel-Miranda musical, there you go.
Yep.
Or Isabella, who is constantly told to be perfect and represent everything, be the pretty face of the family, and just how stressed out she is, even without really showing it. And even though they don't show a lot of screen time for Camilo, his ability to shapeshift could very well be the symbolism of
flexibility.
Yeah, flexibility, just like turn into whatever the family wants you to instead of finding your own identity. Because he turned into everyone else and rarely stays within his own form. Or like Peppa, whose emotions control the weather, which I can understand some people having an issue with that connection, because there are some like pieces of media where they do that and it's like, I don't know about that. Like, yeah, it's a tightrope thing you have to be careful with.
The symbolism of that, it does kind of make a lot of sense. Like when you consider like how like the mood of the mother of the house really kind of dictates like how everyone else's day is going to be.
Right. And then of course, well, we would like to not talk about Bruno, but we have to talk about Bruno and his ability to look into the future and how everyone sees him as like a problem. And it's like, don't tell us what's bad, so you're useless to us. We don't talk about you anymore. That's going to mess up a kid. I'm just saying. That really sucks. And I want to clap back at one criticism I've seen through a few reviews. A lot of people think there needed to be a villain because heaven forbid the antagonistic symbolism of the house falling apart because of toxicity from the family.
I am so glad you brought this up.
Because like heaven forbid that Disney can make a movie without a villain or a straightforward villain. because we were getting a little tired of their twist villains, and their roadblock villains were fine, but I wouldn't say they were anything noteworthy. And as much as I would love them to go back to like making these iconic, not one dimensional, but very straightforward villains,
You
I
know,
get that.
the larger than life personality villains.
Yeah. Like your Gaston, your Judge Frollo, and such. There's not a straightforward villain. It's just Abuela and her actions that trickle down throughout different members of the family that causes the turmoil, and then just the chaos between the family members, and then how she treats Maribel, who has no powers, and how that just is really the igniting point. It's just like the magic is like, really? I bring you magic and life and gifts, and yet you treat your family like crap because one of them doesn't have a amazing power that can help shape what the family's visuals. And I know there's that one character, the hot guy that was going to be engaged to Isabella Mariano. Like, it could have been so easy to make him a villain, and he's played by Maluma, a Colombian singer, because he looks like that suave villain that would get into the family and like take the magic if this was like a 90s Disney movie, you know?
I'm so glad that he wasn't the villain, and honestly really wasn't much of a presence at all.
Yeah, and the whole journey of this movie is self-reflection and retrospective about the power of family. And I think it's really dismissive that people are dinging this movie because it's smaller scale. It doesn't have a straightforward, larger than life villain. And that's what is wrong with animation fans in general. It's like, you want studios to do something different. They finally do something different, and then you lash out at it. Not to say you have to like everything, but I think there are better criticisms to be had than, oh, there was no villain, or, oh, it's smaller scale.
This kind of reminds me of the conversation we had with Luca, where fans of Disney, whether they like to admit it or not, have kind of like boxed the two studios. They have to do certain things or else the movie is, in their eyes, not good. All of the complaints that I've heard about this movie, to me, are its biggest strengths. The fact that this is Disney's first real family drama, and it's also kind of like their first real dip into magical realism.
What's interesting is this might be Disney's very first animated film where the entire family plays a major role in the story. Because let's be real, a lot of animated films love to push the mother and the father characters way into the background. And like, this is why everyone loves Mamoru Hosoda, because he was known for putting the family up front instead of in the background, like what most people would do. And I think that's something to commemorate Encanto for. Because how many Disney movies have either killed the parents or the parents become the most minor of side characters?
I'd say about 90% of them.
And like, even like Pixar's Coco, which pushed a lot of the family into the background. Granted, it traded them with the family members that were dead, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And then there's, of course, The Incredibles, which focuses on a literal superhero family. But it's nice that the teams that made Encanto like made sure that the whole family, no matter if they had smaller or bigger roles, were important to the story.
Speaking of these characters, can we talk about like the voice cast and how stacked this is?
Yeah, let's talk about them, because there's a lot of Latinx and Colombian and Hispanic voice actors in this movie. I'm glad that they're getting better at that, because Disney was not always the best at doing that.
but they have gotten significantly better.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's also down to having a really good casting director. Because the thing about Disney, again, they never really advertise the actors as the major drawing point of their films. You know how like a lot of like animated films from like DreamWorks would do it. Some Sony Pictures did this where they would just list off the actors that they got.
Mm-hmm.
Disney's like, you're going to come to our movie and you're going to enjoy whoever we got for the film. So yeah, we have Stephanie Beatriz for Maribel, and she's great. I was already a fan of her from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and she's of course great in Maya in the Three.
And she's great in The Heights as well.
And then we got Wilmer Valderrama as Agustin Madrigal, Maribel's father. We have Angie Cepeda as Julieta, Maribel's mom. We have Jessica Darrow as Luisa. We have Diane Guerrero as Isabella. We have Maria Cecilia Botero as Abuela. We have Renzi Feliz as Camilo. We have Carolina Gaitan as Pepa. We have Mauro Castillo as Felix. We have Adesa as Dolores. And one of my big surprises of like who's in this movie, John Leguizamo as Bruno.
Oh, he was so good. One more name I have to point out is Olga Merediz as Alma's singing voice. Olga played a character named Abuela in The Heights, both on Broadway and in the theatrical film. The reason that's special casting is A, because her connection with Lin Manuel-Miranda, and
Right.
B, I just love the fact that Disney still hires like actual singers for
the music parts.
Yeah,
that's the thing, because a lot of films can be like, you can sing, right? And it's like, better hire a singer to sound like for me.
there's no shame in doing that either, because
no.
in animation, like it's already an illusion. Watching moving images and hearing people who probably don't even look anything like their characters recording dialogue, to have someone else do the singing voice is more than okay.
Of course, since it's a Disney movie and a recent Disney movie, Alan Tudyk has to show up, and he plays Pico, the toucan, who I was happy that they took away the animal sidekick character, because they had so many animals that they could have used, like the tapirs and then the capybaras, and yet they don't use one. I mean, the mice play a little bit of a role with Bruno, but I'm glad that they took out that trope.
I think they kind of traded that in for Antonio, his gift being that he talks to animals.
Oh, Antonio was great. I love little fella. And how he's just like, yeah, I can understand them. Do not eat them. All great performances all around. And some of them do reprise their roles to sing and speak the dialogue in Spanish.
That's another thing I like about Disney's more recent casting choices is they're picking bilingual actors to dub the foreign language versions.
I guess we have to talk about the music right now, because of course Lin Manuel-Miranda wrote the songs, and then Jermaine Franco, who composed music for Dope, Dora, and The Lost City of Gold, and Coco, helped compose the overall music. And it's great. Like both the music and the songs are great. Sometimes the songs get in the way of the emotional beats. I agree with our friend Kate from But Why Though in her reviews, where the tone of the song maybe undoes a little bit of the emotional moment. It's like in Prince of Egypt or in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, where there's that really weird comedy song near the very end, and it's like, half of Paris is burning down, guys. like dude, like stop singing. And I think it's a little like the songs might not have the best placement, but I do like the songs themselves. Of course, the one I had stuck in my head was We Don't Talk About Bruno. And the everyone sounded so good singing, And
Mm-hmm.
and also, again, shout outs to the character of Bruno. I was dreading that, like, oh man, they don't talk about Bruno. That means he's going to be the bad guy. Again, that would have been so easy. That nothing against Illumination Entertainment, but that's something that they would have absolutely done.
Yep.
Was make the guy who could look into the future the bad guy. And he doesn't even show up a whole lot in the movie, which is kind of a bummer because I love John's performance as him. But I understand that Maribel needed to see and reconnect with the family members. And like that was more important. But I wish Bruno stuck around a little more than.
Oh, sure.
And of course, this being a Disney animated feature, the animation is incredible. Again, not every animated feature needs to have $116 million shoved into it. But if you're going to shove that much money into it, you better make sure it shows.
Pretty much every musical number is like the animator's excuse to just throw caution to the wind. The two numbers I think really play around with the animation are Surface Pressure, which I think is probably my favorite song, and What Else Can I Do?
The musical sequence are great, and I love all the little character moments, all the subtle character animation beats, especially when we got characters like Dolores, who's a lot of fun. I love all the gags that are involved with her, especially when they're at the dinner table. And Maribel, just the pressure and the awkward dinner moments. Oh, it's so much fun. The teams and people that are working at these studios right now are so talented, and they have all these smart little ideas of how they want to approach certain characters that they all stand out. It's not just like palette swap characters and such. Everyone feels distinct. They have their own movements, their own ways of moving around, how their facial reactions are. And yeah, it's just a gorgeous movie. The colors are great. The sequences where they are like going through different rooms in the house are great. I like the designs for all the characters. I think this is the first time where Disney, while still staying within their boundaries with their CGI visual look, went out of their way a little more with their designs. Like, I think that's why everyone, like by 2016, it's like, okay, we get it. You have a certain visual look for your humans. I love the designs of all the characters in Encanto. I think they're all very distinct. And I love Maribel. She's not like a straightforward Disney princess look. And I think that's so nice for representation because not everyone looks like a sculpted goddess.
Same.
Disney. And that's why I liked Raya from their previous film. Just like had a more muscular, like fit fighter like character. And like the only one that looks like a traditional Disney princess is Isabella, but even then that's like, I think that's like a joke, not a joke. Like it's intentional that she's Miss Perfect, and all of the perfection and beauty is hiding all of the stress that is killing her. Mm-hmm. Dolores is very cute. I love her facial expressions, and I loved Felix. I loved his design. I loved the parents. I love Agustin and Julietta's designs. It's just a great looking movie. And I mean, again, big shock. Disney made a visually good looking movie.
I know, right?
I have a few nitpicks. Like I said, I think sometimes the tone of the songs don't match up with some of the emotional beats.
Probably the one where I can kind of see where you're coming from is What Else Can I Do? That song, it seems a bit too upbeat for that particular moment, but I also think that song just on its own merits is a bop. I get like why some people take issue with the song kind of undercutting like the emotional beat.
And I think the film could have been a little longer. Like 109 minutes, that's just a little longer than their 90-minute films that they used to make in the 90s. I wish there was just a little more time to expand or at least have the characters, like in Luca, like our criticisms with Luca, just breathe a little more. Like they don't just have to get to the next story beat. Like I think the biggest problem again is Disney's going to Disney, and that's going to hurt them in the long run. Like I think they could have gone in a little further or expanded and explored a little more with the themes. Like had a little more time to.
Do you think there should have been like maybe an additional 5 to 10 minutes after like the house gets torn apart and there's kind of separation between Mirabel and Abuela?
Yeah, I think they could have paced that out a bit better and it's expand upon a few more elements. Like I said, one of the characters, while still very much in the movie with Camilo and Antonio, like they could have had a little more screen time on them. And yeah, it's just like I said, Disney's has to start accepting the fact that maybe they could go a little further. They like to push the family friendly motto and such, even though some of their previous work is extremely dark at points.
Mm-hmm.
I think people kind of forget how many people die in Atlantis: The Lost Empire. And just let's just say how Clayton dies in Tarzan is not the most family friendly thing ever.
No.
Or Princess and the Frog character gets dragged to hell. Not figurative, literal hell. And
a song called Hellfire in The Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Like they can go the distance. They should go the distance. Like playing it safe in some areas is going to hurt them. That's what hurt Frozen 2 for me. They just couldn't quite commit to the dark storyline of that movie. And they could have expanded a little more on the algorithm and online interactions with Ralph Breaks the Internet. It's like the biggest issue with this movie is that Disney's going to Disney. And while I still really do love this movie, and it doesn't hurt it at all, like it doesn't like just cripple the entire movie. You just want to see them start doing more, going the distance.
It's like they'll get 90% there. They trip and fall like right as they get to the finish line. Or my favorite metaphor, they're playing Guitar Hero and they were perfect right until the last note.
They're getting complacent a little because now they're starting to realize that them just going a little further with having more inclusive stories and diverse characters and casts and who tells the story. I guess I would have loved to have seen what Charisse Castro-Smith would have done if she had full control.
I hear what you're saying.
I think the issue is that they think they're like, okay, we got to go this far and then not further. And then they're like, okay, all done. Hard Day's work is finished. And then it's like, no, you could gone a little further. Oh, okay, Disney, bye.
Now, that being said, one thing that is cool is I believe one of the songs on the soundtrack is Disney's first like musical number entirely in Spanish called Dos Oruguitas.
Yeah, I think that is.
It's a great moment. That's kind of like the up montage, but instead of at the beginning of the film, it's right towards the end. I've seen this movie twice, and both times that part made me tear up.
This story's got a lot of great emotional beats, and I really connect to movies that are about family because I'm very close with my family. And
same.
I love movies that focus on family dynamics. That's why I'm such a huge defender of Mamoru Hosoda and just, well, a supporter of him. And it is just a super touching movie. Even if the kids at my theater screening, I don't think they quite got the emotional beats at points, but they're kids. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
But in general, within this very busy year that includes Belle, The Mitchells versus the Machines, Josie, the Tiger and the Fish, The Summon of the Gods, and Calamity, Encanto is definitely one of the best animated features of this year. It's
Oh,
my
yeah.
it's in my top 5. It's right behind the Summit of the Gods. And we'll just have to see if it moves up or moves down after I see a few of the other animated films that are out, like Green Snake and what have you.
I still need to see Some of the Gods and Belle and Flea and Josie and the Fish. As of now, Encanto is firmly in my top 5.
Of course, with everything going on in the world right now, if you feel safe to go to a movie theater, I definitely recommend making this one of the films you go see. Like, mask up, make sure you've had your vaccine and booster. But I definitely would make this one if you want to go to a theater, because this movie is going to come out onto Disney Plus in a few weeks.
Yep.
So don't feel too much pressure. I mean, granted, it's already doing pretty well at the box office. So I'm not saying like, you better go see it or else you are what's wrong in the world. Like, no, it's a Disney movie, especially a Disney animated movie. It's going to do fine. I know Raya didn't do as well as it probably should have. But, again, context means everything in a film release.
Yeah, exactly. While I would personally recommend you see this in theaters, if you're not quite ready for that, like you can watch it on Disney Plus in just a few weeks and it will be a great movie no matter how you watch it. I just want you guys to watch this because it's great and wonderful.
A movie has to be good in and out of the theater. So
for recommendations, what are since we were kind of talking about Disney history earlier, are there any like specific Disney movies that perhaps haven't really gotten as much attention as, some of the heavy hitters?
I mean, like, I know everyone really loves Atlantis, Lost Empire, and Treasure Planet, so I'm not going to mention those. I think Ichabod and Mr. Toad as a combination are pretty great. I mean, I know that was the last of their anthology films, so of course it was the best one. And granted, I'm sure there are some elements that do not age well. Just expect that with a lot of Disney's older films. And that's not a fault on its own. It's just, time is not kind to certain aspects of film and storytelling. My recommendation, though, is going to be for a very sweet anime that came out in 2015. It's called My Love Story. And it's about these two friends who one is like this generic, good-looking anime guy, and his best friend and the main character is this brick wall of a male individual who is a teenager, but he doesn't look like it. But that's kind of the fun with animation. You can play around with designs. And every time the main character, Takeo, had a crush on someone, the crush would go to his best friend. And his best friend is not really interested in dating. There's even this one scene in the 3rd episode where his friend is like, I'm just not interested in putting in the work to get into a relationship. Anytime I think about going on a date, it makes me tired. So he does everything in his power to like pretty much tell everyone to piss off. And then one day Takeo saves this girl from being harassed and she falls in love with him. And it's a very sweet romantic comedy. It's probably one of the best rom-com animes that I've seen in a good long time. And while it does have its like animes going to anime moments, the comedy is great. The characters are great. The animation is fantastic. Then again, what do you expect? Like, don't expect anything but great from Madhouse. So it's on High Dive, the Sentai Filmworks streaming service. But I'm sure you can find it elsewhere. I don't know if it's going to be dubbed or subbed or both. You'll kind of have to go look around. But if you're looking for a fun rom-com and need something to watch alongside Horimiya or Don't Toy With Me, Nagatoro, definitely watch this anime.
For my recommendations, I got a handful. If you want a little bit more like kind of behind the scenes at Disney, like the Disney Renaissance, 2 documentaries I would recommend anyone watch are Waking Sleeping Beauty, which kind of covers the entire Disney Renaissance, and Howard, which exclusively focuses on the life and career of the late Howard Ashman. Both of these are on Disney Plus, and both are some of my favorite documentaries, especially about Disney. If you're looking for something more holiday themed, one of the shorts that hasn't been on Disney Plus but will be coming soon is a 2006 short called The Little Match Girl. It was supposed to be part of a Fantasia sequel, never quite made the cut. It's a very touching little short film. And then the other two I have are a Don Bluth short film from like 1979 called The Small Ones. This was like one of the last things he did before leaving Disney. And then since we're talking about family and musicals, I kind of have to recommend a Goofy movie. I've rewatched this movie a couple times over the past couple years, and honestly, it gets better every time I watch it. Given the title, you wouldn't think it'd be you wouldn't think it would be like this emotional like character drama, and yet like I get a little bit teared up every time I watch it. You guys got some great recommendations between the two of us.
Well, I was going to pull a dad joke on you and say like, because you're saying like I've got to recommend a Goofy movie, and I was like, well, what's the movie called? Oh, when you have a nephew, you start turning into your dad, and the dad jokes spill out. Those are all pretty good recommendations.
Oh yeah.
And with that, that's it for this podcast. Because next time we're going to be talking about something that I wanted to do all year and talk about the adult animation scene for this year. Like we're not doing like direct like reviews of anything specific. I mean, maybe a little bit outside of Inside Job and Arcane. We're just going to talk about like where adult animation is going to be.
Sort of like a state of the genre.
Yeah, like a retrospective, like, and it's like I love doing stuff like that, but I also love doing like simple just one movie reviews and such. And we don't get to do a lot of that because every streaming service is just shoving everything down our throats at once.
That'll do it for this episode. Cameron, before we get out of here, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at Cam's Eye View. I run my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and shows from around the world, called The Other Side of Animation. I have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. I am also slowly making a Ko-Fi account, and I will make sure to drop a link to that when it's really fully done. And that's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Look for us on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything we found at renegadepopculture.com. You need escape? So do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. Thank you guys for joining, and we will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.